Okay. Hello. Hi. So glad you guys are here. Super duper excited about today's workshop. We are going to be diving into brand positioning with Erin Jones. And for those of you who I don't know, I'm Katrina Aronson. I am a marketing and business strategy coach for female entrepreneurs. And I am teaming up today with an amazing partner of mine, Erin Jones, who I'm going to intro you to if you don't know her in just a moment. But just to walk back and explain a little bit about what you're about to see and why I brought branding into what it is that I do. I like to focus a lot on marketing. You probably know this already if we've met before. And what happens is a lot of times people will come to me and say, I'm ready to market myself. I'm ready to market my brand. I'm ready to make money. And that is great. But the next question will be, okay, let's talk about your branding. Where are you with this? Who are you as a brand? And oftentimes, depending on where you are in your business, they will show me their logo. They will show me their color palette. But there's so many other things that involve getting a little bit messy that go into your brand. And that's where your brand positioning really comes in. And it's such a great way to really bring all of this to life. I talk a lot about who the heck is your client, and this is another way of thinking about it, and I actually really, really like this. Even if you know your client, this is getting even more granular here. So this is the meat and the bones. This is how you get your marketing to be awesome. If you do not have a really good handle on your brand positioning or your branding as a whole, the more you dive into this, the better your marketing is going to be. So I promise you, even if your branding is awesome, the more you understand this about yourself, about your business, the better outcome you are going to see. And that is where Erin comes in. So let me just quickly intro you to Erin. And this is really a game shifter for you because I want you to make sure you're following her on Instagram, following this in conjunction with all the marketing stuff that you are doing. The more clear you get on your branding, the better everything looks. Okay, so Erin Jones is a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, and she's also a brand expert. She helps brands really articulate their story, right? So that is what branding really is. And she brings 15 years of agency experience. She's worked across a lot of different industries. So she brings a breadth of knowledge that a lot of people don't have when they're really specific to a couple of things. She really speaks to doing the research first. And we see this with a lot of brand people, right? Makes sense. So that's really where she guides me. She guides all of her clients. So all of this to say, you are in really, really good hands today. You're going to learn something freaking awesome. So get ready. If you don't have a pad of paper, you absolutely need one. There's going to be a lot of notes to take. Let me just say now that we are going to have space to do a Q&A. So at the end, we're going to answer all the questions, but if you want to throw them into the chat box, I'm going to be checking in there and we'll answer all of those questions at the end. If you cannot stick it around to the end, that's okay because we're recording this. You're going to get the replay. So you will be able to watch the answer to your question in that replay. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Erin and please take it away. I'm going to throw myself on mute, but I will jump in here as I have questions.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Katrina. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Erin, of course, and I also want to introduce myself as a student of Katrina's. I think, yes, we're friends, we're peers, we're colleagues, but an important piece here is that I've been a student of Katrina's, and it has opened my eyes to, even though I have lived and breathed branding for 15 years of my life, the difference between marketing and branding. And I want to just sort of hover here for a minute, and that is that marketing, and like clear as I can be, marketing as external branding, yes, there are external components of it, but it is a very internal process. It is a very behind the curtained process before you're ready to reveal yourself. So as we move through this presentation, it's going to get a little messy, and that is the process. That is okay. I really do want you to jot down questions. I don't care how specific they are. get them in there. This is what I do for a living. So I'm supposed to be on my toes at the end of this. If you want to ask me, I will be there. I will do my best to answer it. But let's dig in a little bit more. Let's see if I can get this to move forward. Nope, I gotta push on it first. Hold on one second. Okay. All right. Let's just stop for a minute because Katrina did a really nice job of introducing the fact that branding is more than a logo. It's more than a color palette. Branding to me is like the ocean. It is big, it is vast, and it is wide. So in order for us to really be able to position ourselves in the market to against our competition and to our customers, we need to do something that I think is the most important piece of this, which is called brand positioning. We need to determine where we live, who we are, what we deliver, and why we're different than others. I'm going to get into an academic now type definition of brand positioning. So you will, especially if you're on Instagram, you'll learn all sorts of different ways to talk about brand strategy or brand positioning. This is the clearest way that I can sort of pull up and out of the academics of it, is that brand positioning is the process of positioning your brand in the mind of your customers. It is that occupying a space, whatever space we decide that is through this work. But here is a definition from Al Ries, and if you've never read the book Positioning by Al Ries and Trout, he says, positioning is not what you do to the product. It's what you do to the mind of the prospect. Let's say that, let's read that again. So positioning is not what you do to the product. It's not what you do to your website. It's not exactly what you're doing maybe to your packaging or your service offerings. Positioning is what you do to the mind of the prospect. And in order to do that, you have to really clearly define what it is you're trying to own. He goes on to say, it's how you differentiate your brand in the mind. Positioning compensates for over-communicated society by using an oversimplified message. So how do we get to that message? To cut through the clutter and get into the mind. Positioning focuses on the perceptions of the prospect, not on the reality of the brand. So we will use words like aspirational. We will say, Katrina talks a lot about a target client or your target audience. Who is that persona that you want to attract? Not everybody's going to look exactly like that person, but you want to build your brand to attract the people that you want to, have your services. It's very similar to, building your world and lifestyle design and attracting the people that you want in your life. So another way for us to think about brand positioning is that brand positioning is your brand's story. This might feel a little cutting, but it's not your personal story. I think it can be the first thing we want to jump to is going to our CV or our resume and being able to list off why we are the right people or the right person to do the job. But brand positioning is not a personal story. It is the story of your brand. Now, we will go on to talk about how your experience, your credibility are proof points in your brand positioning. One exercise I've thought about too is if you check the tense on what's on your website right now, are you speaking directly to the customer? Are you saying you? Are you, really attracting people, or are you saying I or third person? That's a nice little trick, just to shift the perception of the way that the messaging is coming across, is to speak directly to those customers. And the brand story needs to hit on those benefits to the customer. All right. So the easiest way, now that we've sort of talked about it in this ethereal, conceptual way, let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. Let's think about, what are other people's positioning statement? So Coca-Cola, it's a big one, right? We are looking at it right now, and I'm going to read it to you in my best copywriting voice. I know this sounds a little silly because you can read these out loud. I'm sorry, you can read them to yourselves. However, positioning, it should feel lyrical. It should be a story. It should feel good. So let's talk about this. Coca-Cola. For individuals looking for high-quality beverages, Coca-Cola offers a wide range of the most refreshing options. Each creates a positive experience for customers when they enjoy a Coca-Cola brand drink. Unlike other beverage options, Coca-Cola products inspire happiness and make a positive difference in customers' lives. And the brand is intensely focused on the needs of consumers and customers. It's a big leap. That's a big leap to just say Coca-Cola inspires happiness. But getting to that nugget of information for their positioning really has enabled them to create their communications, campaigns, advertising that is moving and all laddering back up to this idea of inspiring happiness. Read that line, taste the feeling. Sort of hard to do, right? How do we taste emotion? But we all know what that means. We all know what that sort of sizzle or fizzle, on our tongue feels like when we open a Coca-Cola. There are sensory cues that are in the Coca-Cola's positioning that comes to life. Just that sound inspires happiness now because we've been trained. We as the prospect's mind have been conditioned to exactly know where Coca-Cola fits in our lives, in our fridge, or maybe we don't drink soda, but it is a treat and it inspires happiness because we get to have a cheeseburger and a French fry, and we don't normally do that. So there's one. Let's dig into another. I'm going to keep doing that because I'm going to click first. Sorry about that, guys. Beauty counter. So I know many of you might actually sell beauty counter out there. I think what they have done so well is really inspired a movement versus just being a product. Their positioning isn't about makeup. It isn't about colors. It's about clean beauty. And I think what they've done really beautifully is created a platform even beyond the positioning. So I'm going to read it to you. One by one, we are leading a movement to a future where all beauty is clean beauty. We are powered by people, and our collective mission is to get safer products into the hands of everyone. Formulate, advocate, and educate. That's our motto for creating products that truly perform while holding ourselves to unparalleled standards of safety. Why? It's really this simple. Beauty should be good for you. So, do you have that line? Do you have that sort of crispness to your brand? We're going to talk about how to get that and how really to aspire to it. Let's keep going. I've got one more here. Kin Euphorics is a brand that you might have seen on Instagram. It's a non-alcoholic sort of euphoric. It's used to in place of alcohol. It's opening up a new category, which I think is so interesting. We're going to get into category definition too, and making sure that you are really defining your category in the right way. But Kin Euphorics, and we'll go into this example more, is an actual, in the can, pop it open, and enjoy it in the same way that you would in sort of a relaxing moment. But you can see they're really reaching out and celebrating their difference in the market and defining their category by saying to the person, here you go, there's that tense, you call yourselves, right? You call yourself dream seekers, brain power boosters, third eye openers, psyche knots, sparkers of consciousness, stargazers, and trailblazers. But in our house, you're all kin. I mean, they did that so well. And those sort of words have already built what that brand is going to be. And I'll show you in a few slides how that comes to life visually. I did it again. Here we try this. Here we go. All right. So how'd they develop this positioning? It's really great, right? How did they boil it down to those crisp, clean words that specifically take us to a very distinct place, a very distinct service, and a distinct process? They did it through how I'm going to show you. And I will tell you that the big guys like a Coca-Cola or Kin, even though that they are a smaller business, they start with a pretty big budget to do so. But the good news is you don't have to have a huge budget to do positioning if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and get a little scrappy on this. As Katrina mentioned, this starts with research. I also want to mention that the positioning and getting Coca-Cola to where they are took a very long time. They had to refine it. And it's not an overnight process for these big companies. It's not going to be an overnight process for you too. I'm going to ask you if you want to go on this journey to really give yourselves grace and also give yourself the permission to get messy. And the whole point of positioning, the finding the right, just sort of the right spark for you and your brand, is going to require you to look in places you didn't think you were going to look. And we'll talk about where to even start. And I'll take you through on that journey too. Okay, so as Katrina mentioned, it's going to begin with research. And research is almost as big as branding, right? I mean, they just say, okay, begin with research. There are so many different types of research, but I'm going to narrow it in for you. So you might know plenty about quantitative research. So quantitative research are surveys. You might even get a really simple survey via email, or you might even take a survey on Instagram stories where you're sliding or saying yes or no, or you're choosing. That is a form of research. That is not the type of research I am going to recommend that you do in order to understand this with your customers. So there's a quantitative type of research and there's qualitative type of research. And when you think about qualitative, that is conversational. It is one-on-one. We are discussing those things with each other. And qualitative can come in different forms too. I'll get a little nerdy on you when it comes to research, but you might have heard of something called ethnographies. Ethnographies are literally going into people's homes and sitting down with them and following them around and understanding how they're using your product. Those big guys like Procter & Gamble, one of the things they want to understand is once you purchase the product, what do you do with it? Does it end up living underneath your sink? If it lives underneath your sink, you're not going to buy another one. So they will literally go in, open up your fridge. General Mills will go in and open up your fridge and see which products are in front, which products you're saying you put in your grocery cart versus what you actually put in your grocery cart. Now that's product-based research, but there is also what I would say qualitative ethnographic. So ride-alongs or in-home research. I've done research where it's actually 3 women. We call them girlfriend groups. They invite their friends. We sit down and we chat about really the issue at hand and what that service or the product is going to solve for them. And through this research, we learn so much. And I would even say, if you can't get a hold of your customers, we'll go into this. How do you recreate something like this? Even if maybe some of your close friends haven't maybe experienced or bought your service or your product, how do you still get to them to sit down and talk about this need that they're willing, need to fulfill? And that's what we're going to talk about. At the end of the day, research is about understanding the need of your customer and how you can fulfill it. And in order to fulfill it, what we fulfill it with are called your benefits. So where do you start? You start with stakeholders. So stakeholders, if you have more than just yourself in the company or more than just yourself in your brand, would be, you try to grab them from cross departments. So you try to grab somebody from finance. You would try to grab somebody from marketing. You would try to grab somebody from sales. If it's all you, that's okay. What I'm assuming, and I would hope if this isn't the case, is that you do have some business friends. So call them stakeholders or call them business friends. But what you want to understand is what is the perception of your brand today? And in order to do that, here's 4 questions I would recommend that you ask these people. Again, this is not necessarily your customer. These are people you work closely with or have really good purview into your brand today. I would ask them in your own words, what is Jones & Co.? So this is really, really relevant for somebody that already has a brand out there. To be able to ask these questions, it's like, can you, even if you work for the company, do you know the elevator pitch? And listen, it's not a test. It's not a test whether or not they've sort of absorb the missions and visions and values of a company. It's not. It is it really clear in the marketplace what it is you do? And so you're going to ask your stakeholders first, because hopefully they know. If they don't know, what they're going to reveal to you is what they don't know. And so a lot of research is actually figuring out what you don't know. We call them learning gaps, and we'll figure out how to answer those questions. The second I would ask, or would have you ask your stakeholders, or even yourself, is what do you deliver to your customers and clients? And I'm not talking about speeds and feeds or products or service offerings. What do you deliver to them? At the end of the day, what do you think they walk away with after they've experienced, working with you? We're getting closer to benefits, and then we're going to validate them with the actual customers. The next one, how do you do this better? So building off of question 2, how do you do this better than your competition? So if you think about those benefits, let's say we have 3 of them. Do you do it better than your competition? And then 4th, what would make your brand positioning so a success in your eyes? How would it make your brand's life better? How would it perform better? Really understanding what the vision is for the brand positioning and what you want it to deliver will be really, really important. So you got to come clean with yourself. You got to ask these questions. At the end of the day, what is this brand positioning? What are you hoping it's going to do? Okay.
I just want to jump in there for a second.
Yes.
So those questions are super helpful. Do you find and do you recommend that people do them in an anonymous survey, or do you find it better face-to-face? Like, what is your suggestion?
So really, really great question. I think ideally you would have a third party be able to ask those questions, to your stakeholders. If you don't have that, right? If you don't have the capability of having, or maybe you just don't have that amount of people in your company, ask them yourself, and you need to do one-on-one conversation. Because that, doing a survey or quantitative or sending something out, yes, it's great. It's a good way for us to build marketing content, to grab testimonials, but it doesn't allow us to ask why or how or what, or just dig a little bit deeper. And I think some of these conversations are so amazing to open up just possibilities you haven't thought about. And you won't get that from.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
You are welcome. All right. So next up is research into your category. So what category do you play in, right? In other words, what bucket do you fit in? So if we're to sort of think about this, let's use Jones & Co., right? So Jones & Co. brand strategy, right? That's a pretty big bucket. It seems to be getting really bigger and bigger, right? As branding becomes so important to everything we do in our businesses, brand strategy makes sense. It's essentially boiling it down to, these are consultants, right? And they are doing planning. But what type of planning are they doing? How do they process this? So for Jones & Co., yes, I am brand strategy, but I specifically am research, strategy, and design. It's not an offering. That's actually, I would say, a category in a bucket, because design is last. I really, really 100% want to make sure that you're doing the research and the strategy before we get to design. And you can do this for your own business. So let me give an example of, let's give an example of real estate. If you're a realtor, you are in the category of real estate. Then you might really need to narrow that in. And we'll go over an example actually that I have today to share with you. You're in luxury real estate. Now, let's even hone that in even more. You're in luxury real estate in the Palm Beaches, might be let's even hone that in anymore. You're in luxury real estate and you appeal to people that aren't buying their first home, they're buying their second home. All of a sudden, you have very clearly defined who you want to attract. I do think it's important to point out, though, that's not the only people you're going to attract. So don't be too nervous. Just because you're being clear on who you are does not mean that only those very specific people are going to show up. That means that those people that want to be in that category are also going to show up. And we'll talk about that too. So in other words, what bucket do you fit in? Some of these questions, please ask them to yourself. If you don't know, your customers certainly don't know either. And so how can we add specificity to your category? That's going to ladder back up to those stakeholder interviews. And now let's get into our customers. What do we talk to our customers about? So first up, before we get to being able to talk to our customers, who knows their top 3 competitors? And I would challenge you right now to write down your top 3 competitors. And when I look at competitors, I'm looking beyond what they're selling. I'm even looking beyond what they're saying. I'm looking at the whole package. And here are the 4 questions that I really think you should consider, taking. Well, first, try to define those 3 competitors. What are they promising? Like, not what are they selling? What are they promising? How do their benefits show up differently than yours? So like if we think about Coca-Cola and we think about inspiring happiness in their customers. Pepsi also has a dark colored Coca-Cola product, but the way that they're showing up is way more fun and it's targeting a younger audience, right? It's still competition, but they're targeting a younger audience. They have a little bit more of that adventure to them than this inspiring happiness and this sort of, legacy sort of classic brand. Pepsi pushed it. They're pushing it in a different way and they're attracting a younger audience. So how are their benefits showing up differently? How are they similar? Should they be similar? Can you pull yourself up and out and what does that look like? And then what space or positioning do you think they own? I would challenge you when you are looking at your competition, and you really should do 3. What do you think their positioning is? What is it? What is that space they're trying to occupy in your prospect's mind? And if they might not, honestly, they might not be able to define that. I would also say here that I get a lot of people that tell me, oh, I don't really have any competition. I would say that's not true. You do. Because if we think about the consumer's brain again, the customer's brain again, they are choosing something else. They are choosing something else besides you specifically, or something outside of your category. So you need to think bigger on your customer, or on your competitors, both close in and far away. All right, let's keep going here. Next up is my girl, Lauren Bostic. Love her or hate her. I share her because I think that she has done a really great job of positioning her brand. She has this very playful, she swears a lot. She is not afraid of being a girly girl, but an empowered woman at the same time. And what comes across here is her aesthetic is very, very much pink and cute. But it's almost, what's so interesting about it is the dichotomy of her being so pretty and pink and yet so strong and sort of in your face. Then you look at, we talked about kin, right? We talked about kin and sort of their rebel cry to all these different thinkers. Here's how they show up. Here's how they show up on their website. You can see the rounded corners. You can see that their product is in this very like sort of, I don't even, is it post-apocalyptic, pre-apocalyptic? I don't know. Is it outer space? But it's kin euphorics. You immediately know that that's the type of feeling they're going for. So everything about it has been really guided by those words that were on the page. So the reason I show you these is not because I think they're your competition. They're not my competition. They are what we call in brand strategy analog brands. So analogs are brands that are maybe doing something somewhat similar to what you're delivering to the market or your customer, but they might not be directly in your space. So they're really inspiration. And so I have a series of questions that I would also ask you to really think about. And that is, let's go one further, is what is it that you like about these actual analogs? Do you like the colors? Do you like the feel? Do you like the way that the corners are rounded? Do you like the way that the pictures pop off the page? Do you like that they're showing Lauren Bostic as the head person? All of these things are going to be important for you. Now, it doesn't mean that that's going to define your brand, but it is very much going to help you hone in on your tone and your personality and just really inspire you. All right, so now you've done a lot of research and you're going to need to take a breath. I think it's really important to remember that gathering all this information is the hard part. So give yourself a pat on the back if you've gone through this process and you have all this information. Remember, we've talked to stakeholders, we're going to talk to customers, we've looked at analog brands, and we've looked at our competition. And now we're at insights. So insights coupled with the trends and looking for opportunity or untaken space within the market and competition is what comes next. And this is where, I talked to Katrina about it. This is your Pinterest board. This is your messy vision board. I would highly recommend that if you've done all the research up to this point, first of all, you better be taking notes while you're doing that research because you won't remember it all. There's also an incredible tool called otter.ai, which will literally record your research if it's conversational and transcribe it for you. I really believe in the power of paper. So even if it is on your laptop, I am telling you, you will not be able to find the themes and what you're looking for without printing it all out. So you have recorded this research, you have jotted down what you're feeling about the competition and those questions we talked about, and you should have a good chunk of paper. And I really highly also recommend getting a highlighter and literally reading through every single word that's in front of you. That might sound really laborious, but I'm going to ask you just to highlight the words that pop. And if I was a graphic designer and someone said, oh, make it pop, I'd say, oh, what does that mean? But literally you're going to know because you're close to this. You're going to go through and you're going to highlight the words. And all of a sudden, I promise you, it's like national treasure. You just are looking at the Constitution and things are popping off to find this password. Themes will pop up if you're looking right and you're really open to it. Those themes are what we call inspired strategy. So these are insights. They're nuggets of goodness. They might even be pieces or problems that you didn't even know that you need to resolve. And you can do that with positioning. There's also pieces you need to celebrate that maybe you haven't brought forward. And then there's pieces of the puzzle that you actually need to connect. And that's what we're going to do with the positioning. So what comes now, and I probably say, take a big sleep on this. Don't go right from insights to platforms. You're going to have these insights. And like I said, they might be problems you need to solve. They might be things you need to celebrate, but they are going to sort of be able to be grouped into what I call platforms. And I'll give you a little bit of an explanation of what a platform might be. So a platform, and that it's very like most sort of rudimentary level might be like, this is a platform where we're going to explore ideas that are customer centric. This is a platform where we're going to explore ideas that are more tech focused. This is where we're going to explore ideas that are just cool. Maybe they are, maybe like the Coca-Cola example. This is a platform where we are going to take all those nuggets and literally group them because the ideas that are coming off the page belong in this sort of classic bucket. They belong in the platform of vintage and cool and classic. And I'm just going to take these. They might actually literally be quotes that you're pulling from your customers, your stakeholders, but you're able to group them here in this platform. And you're going to do this. You might have 3 platforms, you might have 2 platforms, but please promise me that you have more than one platform because I know that your brand is multi-layered. They all are. And from there, you're going to, once you've collected all this data and put it into these buckets, you'll see that brand strategists love to say buckets, but basically it just means you're grouping things together. You're grouping them in a platform that feels like a direction you're going to take the brand. And from that, you're going to write out concepts, and then the concepts become positioning. So what first, let's say, what is a concept? I'm just going to give you sort of a rundown. And a lot of this stuff is on my website where you can actually download what a framework looks like for positioning, so you can fill it in yourself. But a concept itself at the top will have what is the concept idea? What's the big idea? You know, what is it that you're trying to sell, right? So if we think about Coca-Cola, that's happiness. And then we're going to talk about, then the concept will have what are the benefits you're delivering. So I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but I'm challenging you to do so. There are two types of benefits. There are functional. So what are they taking away from? So perhaps, like, let's talk about anti-aging cream. They're taking away a functional benefit that within 7 days, they will see less crow's feet. But what they're taking away emotionally is confidence. They're starting to take away a feeling of actually pride in the fact that they even bought this product and they're taking care of themselves in this way. That's the emotional. And we need to get to that. And you need to make sure that you have that defined. And emotional benefit, you can have more than one, of course, but really at the end of the day, the emotional benefit, it really is going to be one big emotional concept. So you're going to have, right, we talked about the big idea, we talked about benefits, and then your point of differentiation. Let's not forget, you looked at all of your competition, right? I hope you have, and I hope you even, really challenge yourself to define those 3 competitors. And if we get to talk afterwards, I will tell you that you do have competition. I mentioned that again, but really, really hone in on that. And you need to understand why you're different. Point of differentiation is why you are the one and only. Now, I know that's like all the things have been thought of, all the songs have been sung, all the books have been written. It's true, but there are literally ways that if you think about the way that you group the words, or so for instance, when I think about my own brand, Jones & Co., the fact that I'm leading with research probably isn't crazy different, but what I would say is crazy different, my positioning is the more inputs, the better output, is that I am looking to all of these different points, and the more input, the more messy, the better. It's a hard thing to say. And so that I'm going to tell you a little bit how mine came to life was then. So I knew this idea of the more inputs, the better output, but I didn't know what that looked like. And so I started to look at just magazines, and I started to look at things in the artwork, and I really fell in love. I mean, how could you not, with Iris Apfel, and just sort of the way that she wore her style and the eclecticism of it. And the fact that she could take all of these mismatched things, mismatched accessories and clothing. And then I even explored her more, because trust me, you can go down rabbit holes here. I explored her even more, and I watched a documentary about what it looked like in her home. Her home had everything from like Christmas decorations out, next to an antique sofa and lamps. But somehow, some way, it all worked. And this sort of embodied to me my positioning of inspired strategy. The more inputs, the better the output. She just made it work. And you'll see that visually, how that comes across in my brand. And I like it. It's quirky, and that's who I am. And that's what I want my clients to get excited about, all of these different things that can inspire. All right. So from there, what does a good positioning do? Why is positioning important? First of all, positioning is not a tagline, although it could feed a tagline. I know people hate that. It's not a tagline, but it might inspire a tagline, right? Positioning is also, it's not necessarily external facing, meaning once you've done this work and it's in a framework, it doesn't mean you take that framework and put it on your homepage. It's not what it's for. It is a blueprint. It is a guide for you to take and then work from to write your copy, to create your marketing and your strategy. Positioning is not something you do once and file away for later. So otherwise, it's not going to serve you. Positioning is a North Star, a structure, a blueprint. Positioning also, it's for you. So it's a tool. So it's not just about it's about the customer, right? Because the customers mean that's how we sell, it's how we make more money. But the positioning is really for you, it's the embodiment. Positioning is the basis for bringing your brand to life. Okay, so now I want to share with you a few more examples. This is a client of mine. Again, she's in a very saturated category, which is real estate, right? And I'm just sharing pieces with you. You know, we went through and did this work of trying to find grounding insights. And, you know, one of them, it says here, I handle it for them, right? She's a perfectionist. She likes to ensure that everything is ready for her clients. She also wants to make sure that things feel seamless. So she said, but I don't want to come across soft, because the business isn't soft, right? There is an edge to real estate that we talked about negotiation. And she said the type of client she has, they expect me to handle it. And I do. And I do it with grace. So God, like just that insight in itself is so chock full of direction on where to take this brand. We talked a lot about sort of this marriage of softness and being able to negotiate. And, you know, something that came out of her mouth is, I know what it means to own my own, right? And I was like, wow, own my own, that's pretty cool, right? And so we kept sort of thinking through this. And I'm going to give you an example now of a positioning narrative. Again, this is not external facing, but it is, you'll see in the very beginning, speaking directly to the customer. So we're defining who that target audience is. Then we're defining how, you know, Linda DeGrave can deliver it. And then we're giving her the credibility points, which is the third paragraph. So I'm just going to read the first part. You have worked very hard to get where you are today. And along that journey, you learned what you like, what you love, and what is worth your time and your money. Own it, right? In this example, we are speaking to the ideal client. And we came to that because we were able to look at testimonials, talk to past clients, and really build the story of who they are. And we're speaking directly to them. Then Linda DeGrave delivers simplified luxury real estate for those who know what they want. Through preparation and understanding, Linda presents and delivers a simplified and smooth real estate experience. Like those words just sort of, I mean, they already are telling me what I'm going to experience. So that's this idea of positioning and taking it from the framework into the narrative. You know, simplified luxury real estate by Linda DeGrave. Own it. Now, her tagline's not own it. She's not going to put it all over anything, but that is an attitude. That is a vibe. That is her brand. I'm going to give you another example. Oh, first, actually, I love this part because I think you guys should challenge yourselves too. We'll get past hold on one second. Do you have a theme song? Okay, so, and I'm not talking just about like any theme song, but this is a theme song that brings to life the brand positioning. She'll probably kill me for this because it's just something fun that we got to do. But you hear this song and you feel it and you know it and you understand it. And we all have different soundtracks in our head. And so I would challenge you to pick a song that embodies your positioning, you know, that embodies this direct, quiet competence, expert in her domain, unapologetic, simple beauty, traditional minimalism, classically elegant, and optimistic. Like, that's this board, right? But we didn't get that. We didn't get there by just cutting things out of magazines. We did the work. All right, enough of that. Do love me some Sade. I will keep going. See now if I can do this. Let's see here. Okay. All right, I want to give you guys another example, and we're going to take a look at some of the pieces, and we're not looking at insights here. We're actually looking at proof points and platform. So remember, right, with the slide where there was the actual jumping board or diving board. Can't remember my words. So Eve Greendale is a lifestyle photographer. She is in the category of lifestyle photography, which again is big. So we really explored this idea of art is life, life is art. And how we got there is we did some of the work to understand her background, which is that she went to school to be an artist. She works in different mediums, and she's really capturing life around us it's Eve as an artist. So we really wanted to dig into that. What does that mean? How does that appear on her shoots? How do her customers or her clients feel the artistry of it? And the proof points are is that no shoot is ever the same shoot, right? That's the lifestyle piece of it. And Eve, of course, has been trained as an artist. Her medium today, what we're talking about, is photography. And so the narrative came to life, and I'll just read it to you. Life was never intended to be ordinary. Again, I'm speaking to my customer. Ordinary comes with the hustle and the bustle, the grind, the everyday. But hidden in the everyday are moments, joyous moments. Eve Greendale photography captures the extraordinary in-betweens, letting the emotion shine, unscripted lifestyle photography with the brightest angle. Captured momentous occasions of your family and your brand from the lens of an artist. So Eve Greendale, capturing a life less ordinary. So if you hear that line, you might think, well, how does that come to life? One of the conversations that her and I had was, she's like, it's kind of like a grown-up Urban Outfitters meets Anthropology. It's like, bang, those are your analog brands, right? We talked about those before. Mine was Skinny Confidential and Kin Euphorics. Urban Outfitters and Anthropology. I think she had Love Shack Fancy was in there. Those are the things that that's the aesthetic she want, and it very much bubbled up nicely to the tone and personality, which we discovered through conversation, through research, is bright, relevant, connected, cheeky, warm, bubbly, unexpected, lighthearted, bright, airy, and happy. And if you know Eve, yes, this explains her, but it also explains her final product and the entire experience that she takes you through in photography. So these are positionings come to life. These aren't the full deliverables, but I want to give you sort of an example of the work. If you do the work that we just talked about, you will get this at the end. And then the lastly, I want to talk about, is your brand future-proofed? So Katrina and I have had some of the conversations about length of time. How often do you do this, right? So brand positioning, again, isn't a one and done thing. Nothing seems to be done like that in this world. We got to get back to it. And so you might hear refresh, revitalize. I think Katrina uses reboot, but there's different words that it essentially means take a look at your brand again. And I would tell you to take a look at all of these elements again. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey. And I recommend from an every sort of 2-year standpoint. Katrina is in the habit of, and I agree on this is for more of the marketing and brand strategy piece of it. Make sure that you're looking at it every 6 months, because not everything that we do is going to work perfectly. So, is your brand future-proof? Will it keep living on? That's something we need to think about. And then that's the end, because I've been talking a lot and I really want to get into the questions that you have. I am inviting you to please email me directly at erin@hellojonesandco.com. I will answer anything. This is what I love to do. I think it's so fun. So if you have a real specific question, throw it out at me, and then maybe we can just open up and have a greater conversation about your brand in general and the power of brand positioning.
Yay, Erin, that was unbelievable. Thank you very, very, very much. Really beautifully said, beautifully done. You make it look very easy. I know this is something that's rather complicated, or it can feel that way anyway. So thank you for simplifying it. I do have a couple of questions. So number one, this one's from Jennifer Lampton, and that is, how do we find our own analog brands?
Yes. Okay. So that's a really great question. So I mentioned to you that analogs are doing something that's similar to what you're doing in a different space. Like, that's clear as mud, right? But what you want to look at is how are other brands doing something that's inspiring you? So it might even be the other way around, just to find a brand that's inspiring you and being able to take what they're doing from a business model perspective, from a brand perspective, even the customer delivery perspective, and say, I'm going to look at them and for those reasons, and I might even be able to steal and I don't, this, be able to steal what they're doing and then apply it to my business. That's what an analog means. Like, what is it that I can look at? So the inspiration really can be just because you think something I don't know that you're going to be able to find it right off the bat, right? Like it's something that you just keep coming back to again and again. I think Katrina, you probably can add to this too, but you know, is it a podcast that you listen to? So if it is a podcast, you probably dig a little bit deeper on that actual person that's delivering the podcast. What guest are they having in? What magazines are you reading just to open them up? What sort of books are fascinating to you? I get a lot of inspiration from TV. I mean, old like cut the cord TV, but analogs. Like I just watched the morning show. I just finished it up last night, and oh my God. Oh, so good, right? So good. And I was like floored, but everything about sort of that storyline and the city, you know, and, you know, what they're drinking and how their apartments are set up, all that stuff is just inspiring. So I really just, the analog brands are about looking at the world around you and sort of what turns you on.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it too, because I'm looking at it from the marketing perspective, but it's kind of same. Yeah. It's things that inspire you. And if you're not someone who is cued into this just yet, then that's okay. But I find Instagram a great place to kind of search and find, but also Pinterest is really easy because it's very visual, right? So it's just like weeding through and just stop at the things that feel good to you and put them aside. And then just make a whole bucket of those and figure out what brands are they coming from? Is it the clothes? What about it? And then start from there. So that's like a good place where I would typically start, just from a visual perspective.
Agree.
Yeah, so Jennifer, let us know if you have any other questions there. And then another question is your positioning narrative the same as your positioning statement?
No.
Okay.
And yes, at the same thing. So a positioning statement tends to be a 1 to 2 sentence statement. It should very clearly state what you offer and how you offer it. A positioning narrative is going to be able to bring the entire framework that I talked about to life in a narrative. I don't think that a positioning statement gives brands enough feeling or enough life. I think it stops short. That's why I'm a storyteller. That's why I like to take all these inputs in and go to the narrative. I recommend narrative first, then pull your positioning statement out of that.
Got it. Okay. And one more question is, you said that it's not a tagline. So how does it feed into it? Like, at what point are you creating this tagline?
So I would recommend, you know, if we look back to the example of Linda, or we look back to the example of Eve, neither of those necessarily are taglines, capturing a life less ordinary or, own it, but they're an attitude. I would then tell you to take the narrative and sit down and just write down every line that comes to your mind. That's where you start to build a tagline. I mean, listen, it's not that it doesn't happen. Many people, though, they fall in love with a positioning line, or there's a line in their narrative that they just can't pull themselves away from. That's okay. It can be your tagline. But I think the important part here is that I want you to do the work for the positioning first, not sort of fit your positioning back into the tagline.
Sure. All right, cool. Yeah, I think that's all the questions that we got. So I think that leads us to, okay, so what now? And so what's going to happen now is you are going to get the replay. You're going to get an email from me that is your replay, how to check in with Erin. So I'm going to send you her information, and then Erin's going to follow up with some resources, or rather some notes, which she can kind of tell you about right now. So you make sure that you check those next 2 emails, and now it's just digging in.
Yeah, doing the work. Yeah, so I will send along a recap with some bulleted points. I'll make sure, and then I've got a PDF that has some of these key questions that we talked about. So the stakeholder questions, and what to look at for your competitors, all ready to go. And I will be shooting that out as well.
Perfect. All right, awesome. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.